Andre, the great Michael Steele joins us, the Sense and Sensibility of MSNBC and what's left of the sense of the Republican Party. Hello, friend.
Hey, what's up, man? Happy New Year, first off. Hope you guys are doing well. Good to be with both of you.
Nice to talk to you, and Happy New Year to you. In the bizarre upside-down world of America that we live in now, as we're going to do this New Hampshire primary, this primary system is completely broken. Can you tell people the only way to fix it is to stay in the system and vote?
First off, yeah, I agree the system is broken. It's why when I was national chairman, I tried to change it and made some recommendations which were summarily rejected by Iowa and New Hampshire because it did not include starting with Iowa and New Hampshire. A primary system that's much more reflective of the body, the voting population generally. But having said all of that, it is the system we have, and we are in the throes of a very significant, a very important election. I mean, it's tried at this point because people have said it in so many cycles before. Oh, it's the most important election in our lifetime. Folks, this is for real. This is not a,
this is not a drill.
This is not a drill at all. And so, yes, you need to participate in the system. The founders designed it in a way that gave the power to you, not to institutions, not to political parties. In fact, the founders didn't want the country to get saddled and trapped by political parties. They were against factions, as they called them at the time. And we can see that they were right about the poisonous influence they could have in, suppressing people's instincts to vote or their right to vote, or elevating, the worst voices amongst us. So this is where, common sense Americans out there who do care about their country, who do care about this fledgling republic of ours, as we experiment with democracy, to show up and exercise the franchise.
Michael, I'm going to ask you to prognosticate here for a second. So if Nikki Haley does, in fact, lose ground in New Hampshire and South Carolina, will then we see a rematch of Trump-Biden? And will a lot of the Biden supporters, past and or present day, be willing to switch sides because of major issues on the table this time around, like immigration and migrants?
So let's start. Well, okay. First off, Donald Trump will be the nominee of the Republican Party. Joe Biden will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. This is going to be 2020 redux. So that's that.
And we're out of time.
Nikki doesn't have a pathway to the nomination. She is currently, as we speak, 40 points down in her home state.
4-0?
4-0. And now remember, the 75%, 7 out of 10 voters, Republican primary voters in South Carolina are evangelicals.
Right.
And the evangelical community is squarely Donald Trump's.
So, this is kind of Iowa with better weather.
It's Iowa with better weather.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, better organization and a whole bunch of other pieces because it's a full-on primary. So it's not this, I got to beg you to come out and sit in a room in a corner for 7 hours. Right. It is a very different process. So the electorate is much more energized. It's the point that at the end of the day, her two U.S. senators are supporting Donald Trump, the latest being Tim Scott, who not only announced his endorsement of Trump, but apparently announced his engagement as well. I don't know how those two go together, but okay. Maybe it has something to do with that I want to be your vice president, and I know you won't pick me if I'm not married thing. But anyway.
Yeah, live your life, man. Live your life.
Live your life. God bless you. But the reality of it is I don't see the lane. I don't see the lane that gets her to the nomination, number one. Number two, Nikki is an alternative to Trump. So tell me, at what point do Trump voters want an alternative to Trump?
Well,
if he doesn't get it, exactly.
But what does this all come down to? It comes down to my constant bitching about the fact that if you get off your ass and get involved in this broken primary system, then you lessen the impact of the far left and the far right. When you stay home, they own it.
So let me tell your audience why what you just said is fundamentally the most important aspect of all of this, and it has been since the days of John McCain's race for the presidency. How did John McCain ultimately wind up winning the nomination? John McCain figured out very astutely that he was leaving 7 out of 10 Republican voters on the sidelines. Typically, you have anywhere between 20 and 30% of the base of the party. So out of every 100 primary voters, only 20 of them will show up and actually vote. Those are the hardcore, the most animated, the most agitated, the most, foolery. And the reality of it is, when you tap into those other voters, which is what I said the other candidates should have been doing in this primary from the very beginning. If you wanted to defeat Trump, it wasn't so much taking Trump head on. Yes, you needed to do that. But while you did that, knowing that you were going to pick off his base, you also had to cull votes from the other 7 Republicans who weren't engaged, who typically aren't primary voters because they throw up their hands and go, oh, the right's going to win this race. I don't have any power. You do. You have the power of numbers. And so you're absolutely right. If you don't want Trump to be your nominee, then you have to go vote for someone else.
Right.
If you do, then you can go vote for Trump or stay home.
Right.
But the reality of it is that's the dynamic here. That's something that Nikki cannot build in 4 weeks. You cannot build that out in 4 weeks. New Hampshire is tomorrow, right? And then you get a little bit of a lull before you get to Nevada and South Carolina, and then you're into Super Tuesday.
Right, right.
And so the landscape has not been terraformed for her campaign. Yes, I love the rhetoric. I want this to be a 2-person race, but maybe it really isn't. This race was over because none of you engaged. No, by the way, you raised your hand and said if Donald Trump is a convicted felon, you would still vote for him. And B, you further raised your hand and said, if you're president, I will pardon him.
Right.
So you put yourself in this weird box with the general electorate that, if I elect you and Donald Trump is convicted, you're just going to pardon away all the sins that he's committed as president. And since then, I don't want a piece of that. So it's just a poorly run operation from how to deal tactically with the orange menace in front of them.
Michael, going back to what you said initially.
Remember when that store was in the mall, the Orange Menace? I hated their
shapes. Right next to Spencer and Musicland.
Yeah, terrible.
Michael, early on you said it's going to be Donald Trump, it's going to be Joe Biden. We're going to see a rematch here. Do you see any scenario where we would see a Trump Haley or a Trump DeSantis or even a Trump Ramaswamy ticket?
Good Lord.
No.
Okay.
No,
not to any of the 3.
No.
Okay.
No. Trump, of all the candidates that have run against him, the only one that I would think that he would have a particular interest in elevating to that position is Tim Scott, because Tim Scott is a good sycophant, as he's proving himself to be. No, Nikki Haley would not be his choice. Donald Trump is looking at a scenario that when he takes control of the government, he wants individuals around him who will do exactly what he wants them to do without hesitation or thought. Nikki Haley is not that individual. Ramaswamy could be, but Ramaswamy doesn't add anything to the ticket, and he's as much a showman or more so than Trump, and Trump doesn't want that competition. With respect to others, there's no interest. I think Donald Trump is looking at a woman for this position.
He often does.
Yeah.
My thought is someone like Elise Stefanik.
Yes.
Who fits the bill perfectly. Who, as we witnessed over the last few days, would crawl over broken glass for the chance to be on that ticket. She will say and do anything. There is no amount of shame in her game. So that serves Donald Trump's purpose as well. It checks a number of boxes that he would like to have checked. Tim Scott is not delivering the black vote to Donald Trump, no matter what you say. And besides, someone like Elise Stefanik, is a good counterweight to someone like Kamala Harris.
I want to ask you about.
I would agree.
I want to ask you about Kamala Harris, but first, this is the analogy that I think we're under now. America, the folks that would vote for Trump if he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, they can't be helped. They are who they are, and whatever medical science can do to develop a medicine for you, I hope they do.
Right.
But in the meantime, the people in the middle who are going, maybe he'll be different this time. What in God's name are you thinking that Donald Trump could be different this time? Because there's two delusional schools here, Michael. One is that Biden has been a complete failure because the facts prove differently. There have been a lot of things that have been accomplished. And the other is that life under Trump was some magical fairyland where everything was better. I don't know how you put those two together, but I'm actually concerned you're going to see a lower turnout this fall because people are quitting the system.
You will. You will. I think on the face of it, until the campaign operatives, the ground game operatives, and third-party interests actually start engaging, you're absolutely right. I think you do see a lower turnout than you saw in 20. I think there are people who believe that Donald Trump was better than Lincoln, was better than George Washington, was better than Reagan, and that, we want to return to that. Those folks will turn out because they believe that fervently. The Proud Boys and the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis will turn out because that's their boy. He's been their advocate and avatar. He told them to stand back and stand by, and they've been doing that. And they're waiting for his return, so they'll turn out. So we know essentially where some of that interest in Trump lies and what it will do. The challenge, as you raised it, is everybody else. Who that individual you just described, who says, "Well, I don't like Trump, but I like his policies." They're the ones who witnessed Donald Trump shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, but then just stand by and look at it and not say much or do anything about it. And when the police come up and say what happened, they go, well, all I heard was gunfire. It's like, no, baby, you witnessed it. You saw what happened on January 6th.
Right.
You saw this man tell the country that this was okay, and tried to have his vice president executed. You saw that firsthand. So this is the challenge of this election, and why, going back to the initial point, as we started the conversation, why it is so important for people to understand fundamentally what the founders have given us. Of all the rights they've given us, the one that most directly shapes the course of this nation and our own personal and individual and collective futures is the right to vote. And if you squander that or give it away, meaning you don't participate or you give it to bad actors because of your own selfish interests, you're going to get a government that reflects that, and you won't be happy. I don't know what these people think, why they don't think at some point Donald Trump won't come after them too.
Right.
Because at some point you get in his way. So I don't.
Well, and he's shown that. He actually had a very strong cabinet when he was originally elected in 2016. A lot of really bright people. Every single one of them has come out publicly or loud enough that even if they haven't said it out loud, it's obvious that it's a disaster and they don't think he should be elected to another term. It's a one-way loyalty. It's always been a one-way loyalty. It always will be. He'll run over his own family. Having said that, Biden has a lot to explain, and I don't know that he has the ability to explain it at this point. I knew Senator Biden off and on through the years. He was a very engaging, energetic guy. Here's a bulletin. Yeah, he's old, and he's been through more tragedy in his life than anybody should ever have to experience, which obviously has taken its toll as well. But the way that campaign is managed and the way this White House is managed is insane. I would have Joe Biden in every supermarket talking about grocery prices. I would have him saying, "You bet I'm old." Mm-hmm. And guess what? So's a lot of other people, and I want to take care of the old people and the young people and all those Biden things he can do. But we're not seeing any of that. We're seeing this pretend game. And one of the great mysteries of life, Michael Steele, is Kamala Harris. We don't know if she's up to the job, and America looks at Joe Biden and goes, "I don't know if he's going to be alive."
Right.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things to unpack there. Your first point, I think, is absolutely spot on. And the way I put it is, let President Biden be Uncle Joe. Let him be the guy. And yeah, Uncle Joe is going to, let one go in the middle of the dinner conversation. We know that, right? That's what our uncle does. Everybody's sitting there having a conversation. Next thing you go, okay, what just happened?
Right. You're not wrong.
I'm laughing because it's funny and you're right.
Right? I mean, we know that. We know that's going to happen. So, and that is endearing to people. You don't throw Uncle Joe out of the house when that happens.
Nope.
Everyone kind of laughs and know, okay, there's Joe being Joe, and moves on. So let that happen. Let that unfold the way it needs to unfold naturally. And because that's his gift. That's one of the reasons why, I supported him in 20, because I knew that side of him, and that's the side I thought the country needed. And I think it's the side the country still needs. The rest of the DNC and the political shop in the White House and the senatorial committee and the congressional committee, they should be the bulls in the China shop. They should be the ones out there prosecuting the Republicans for their illiberal behavior. Joe doesn't need to do that. They need to be the ones reminding Americans what America looked like during COVID, what America looked like when Donald Trump was in charge, what we were going through. They need to be the ones that sort of sit up there, and when you hear this crazy stuff coming out of Trump's mouth or his sycophants, to push back on it. But they're not. And so what happens is these narratives, they're not counter narratives, these narratives from Republicans take hold. The reason we're talking about Joe Biden's age is not because people objectively looked at Joe Biden and said he's old. There were enough narratives pushed out by Republicans earlier on questioning Joe Biden's age and his capacity because of his age. That's why we're in this space. The reason people have this negative view about Kamala Harris is not that Kamala Harris did some great screw-up and everyone's going, oh, my God, she's not ready to be president. It's because Republicans put that narrative in the street, coupled with the administration overburdening her early on. Yeah, we want you in charge of all things related to black people. Oh, we want you down on the border. Oh, we want you to handle this issue with the UN. There was not a concentrated effort that we've seen with other vice presidents. Joe should have known better. He was vice president. He should have known how to use as vice president. But his political people around him did not. And that was very, very obvious that they did not know the asset they had in a Kamala Harris. So it's kind of late to figure that out. It's kind of late to change some of those narratives because they're stuck. So you have to reimagine the game, to your point, going forward. And we'll just have to wait and see how they do that. I mean, this is a 50-50 race, and on any given day, Donald Trump is ahead. So, that's the reality that we're in right now.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of the reality of it. I guess we're just going to have to see how it plays out and who switches sides and who doesn't.
Right.
You just have to stay actively engaged.
Yeah.
The middle is way bigger than the far right and the far left.
Absolutely.
And the middle cannot sit this out. This is not a drill. This is not a reality TV show. This is real.
Yeah.
Michael, we have our primary coming up in March, and we're hoping, Steve and I were talking this morning, I said, God, I hope we get a 15 to 20% turnout. That's sad that we're hoping for that low.
Yeah. But that is probably the mean of the numbers when you look at what happens in a state like Illinois and a state like Wisconsin, which is going to have some big issues relative to abortion on the ballot. There are Republicans trying to push but I don't know why Republicans are still pushing the abortion issue the way they are, because
Agree.
it ain't a for them. But okay, go ahead.
Right.
So you'll have certain things that may peak up, the numbers a little bit. But you're right, Andrea, that in the main, you're going to see a low turnout, because I've kind of come to the conclusion, and I get some flack for it, but you know what? I'll be nice.
No, don't.
I really don't care. Let me put it that way. I think Americans have become very self-absorbed and very selfish.
Yep.
And they've become whiny and petulant little children. I am so grateful that this generation is not the World War II generation, because they would not be considered the greatest in history.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And they shirk away from their global responsibilities, as well as their domestic responsibilities. And it is amazing to me just how inward looking and how self-absorbed we've become. And Donald Trump is the avatar for that. It's all me, me, me. How do I feel? Oh, I'm upset. You offended me. Oh my God, this, that, or the other thing. It's like, that's the story of life generally. And we've always found a way to be there for our neighbors, to be there for our community, to be there for the country, and to be there for our allies abroad. So we want to throw Zelensky and Ukraine underwater. Why? Because Putin said so. Really?
Right.
And so you have these dynamics, folks, that play out that really speaks to something that's a little bit more deep that's going on here. And I don't know. A lot of it has to do with the kind of leaders that are out there now. I don't know if the leadership is emerging from this space, or this space is creating them. But the reality of it is, we've got to get it together, because the stakes are too high. And we just got to stop looking at our navels.
Right.
That's
100%. And the selfish piece of it is gigantic. And if you look at your grandkids or your kids, do it for them.
Right.
They deserve to screw up their own country, not be handed what we're about to hand them again.
That's right.
You got to care enough to go out and vote. It is such a minimal requirement, and it's all you can do. And by the way, the amount of time you spend online goofing around, playing games, doing whatever you're doing, you could actually do all the research you need to find out which candidates serve you best, from your school board to the White House and back. It's just not that hard, but you got to care enough to do it. And I tell you, man, I want to be optimistic, but it's tough.
It is tough, but I still hold out hope for, the generation that's coming up now, that tends to look at the system and understand that it is broken and don't accept it at face value.
Right.
But I love the Gen X kids. They really stress test the system. You've got a number of leaders who are emerging, in various areas of life, and that's important to see, where you have people who are willing to take on the challenge. You have Maxwell Frost, for example, from Florida, the youngest member of Congress, a Gen Xer, and you just know that there's a level of engagement here that hopefully, to your point, help correct the course of things. But we've got to get out of the way. The older generation's got to recognize, we screwed up enough. It's time to move on. And that's a little bit of the argument with Biden and Trump. But the reality of it is, given the primary process, you had a chance to select someone other than Biden. You had a chance to select someone other than Trump.
Yep.
But that's not what happened.
Right.
And so we choose them, and then we scream and cry about the fact that these are our nominees. It's like, well, You picked them. You had a chance to pick a Ted Cruz or a Marco Rubio back in 2016, but you didn't. You picked the old fat white guy. So what are you complaining about?
And going forward, we'll have the DNC here. We got the RNC up the street in Milwaukee. And the Midwest is going to be the epicenter of all of this. Obviously, we'd love you to come in whenever you're in town, so keep that on the back burner, as a possibility, because you're always welcome here. But in the meantime, I love the work you're doing because you're an actual conservative who actually cares about Republican ideals. And the real rhinos are those who believe that all Donald does is perfect. Those are the people who don't live conservative values. And if you believe a true conservative Republican Party needs to exist, you're running out of time to save it. Yeah,
you are. You and I had a laugh probably a year or so ago. We were talking about this, and the question came up, why am I still a Republican? And at that time, I said I referred to myself as a Motel 6 Republican because someone's got to keep the lights on. and what I realize now is I'm on that front porch, I'm having to replace the light bulb. Right.
With the LEDs.
Right. And he's the only one, and Home Depot's closed.
Right.
Michael Steele, follow him all over social media. See him on MSNBC as a voice of reason. And trust me, in Chicago, where we've got a mayor who ain't ready for prime time, we got a governor who refuses to answer questions. The Democrats are not doing us favors here. The truth is in the middle.
They're not. But look, I would share with folks that if you want to get a respite from some of the crazy, you can check. I got a new show on MSNBC now, which I'm very, very
excellent.
Happy.
Plug it.
Yeah, we launched it last weekend. It's called The Weekend, and we're on 8 to 10 a.m. every Saturday and Sunday morning with Alicia Menendez and Simone Sanders and myself, and we're having a blast. So if you just want to check in on a Saturday or Sunday morning with a cup of coffee and
I'm watching.
There you go.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael.
All right, my friend. Thanks for all the time, and thanks for coming on short notice. You're a good man.
Oh, my pleasure. No, it's a real treat to be with you guys.
All right, be well.
Thanks,
I'll be in
Michael.
touch. Thanks, bud. Bye.
Take care now.